They say that living with fear is dying in life. But what does that really mean? Today you will find out. This is the story of a small mouse whose fears did not let him live. Until one day death itself and some wise friends taught him the true value of existence. Once upon a time, in a valley full of flowers and golden fields, lived a small mouse named Pip. Although he was young and had a whole life ahead of him, he lived with a weight in his heart. The fear of death, because he knew that mice do not live many years and that his time in this world would be brief. Every dawn, while the other mice ran happily through the fields and enjoyed the heat of the sun, he hid in his burrow, thinking with anguish, "What if today is the day everything ends? What if death finds me and takes away what I have?" That thought always accompanied him like a shadow that followed him wherever he went. It was in his mornings when he saw the sun rise, and instead of admiring it, he thought about how many sunrises he had left. It followed him in his nights when silence enveloped him, and fear whispered that perhaps the next day he would not open his eyes again. Even in simple moments when his family laughed, when the wind played among the flowers, when life offered him instants of beauty, the mouse could not enjoy them because his mind was chained to the fear that everything would end too soon. The small mouse had a family that loved him deeply, his wife Elara and his young ones. His friends invited him to play, to laugh, to share happy moments, but he could never enjoy it. He was physically present, but his mind was a prisoner of tomorrow. Every laugh of his young ones sounded distant to him, like an echo that failed to touch his heart. He saw his wife prepare food with love, tell stories to the little ones, hold out her hand to accompany him, and still he remained absent, as if an invisible barrier separated him from them. Fear made him a slave to an uncertain future, and while he waited for the day of his departure, without realizing it, he was letting the most valuable moments of his present die. When his wife looked at him worriedly and said to him with tenderness, "My love, stop thinking so much about the day of your passing. You are missing the best moments with us," he replied with a tired sigh. "What's the point of laughing if everything ends? What good are memories if one day death will erase them?" Thus, amidst dark thoughts, the small mouse was slowly moving away from the joy of his family and from life itself. While everyone enjoyed the present, he remained trapped in the fear of the end. His home, which should be a place of laughter and peace, was filled with silence and doubts. One night, unable to sleep, the mouse left his burrow. The field was calm, illuminated by a round moon that seemed to watch him from above. The small mouse looked at the starry sky and with a heart full of anguish raised his voice in a whisper. "God, why did you make the lives of living beings so short? Why do you give us a few years and then take them away? What's the point of running, working, loving and dreaming if in the end everything ends as if it had never existed?" The wind blew softly through the flowers as if it wanted to give him an answer, but it only left more emptiness in his heart. The mouse continued with wet eyes. "If life is just a brief moment, what's the point of rejoicing? Why give me a family if one day I will have to say goodbye to them? Why give me friends if one day they won't be there? It's as if life were a trap, a poisoned gift that reminds me every second that I will lose everything." The mouse stayed there for a long time, contemplating the sky, looking for a voice that would give him clarity, but he heard nothing except the echo of his own fears. And the more he asked, the more he sought to understand, the deeper he fell into confusion. His heart tightened, and he felt that while others slept in peace, he carried a shadow too heavy for his small being. The next day the mouse woke up with tired eyes. He had barely slept, as he had spent the whole night thinking about the same thing, about tomorrow, about the end, about death. His wife, who watched him with tenderness and concern, gently approached him and said, "You spent the night awake again, didn't you?" The mouse looked down and murmured, "I can't help it. Every time I close my eyes, I think that perhaps I won't open them again. It torments me to think that everything we have will disappear in a sigh." His wife sighed, trying to contain her sadness, and replied sweetly, "My dear, while you worry so much about tomorrow, you are missing out on today. The young ones want to play with you. Your friends miss you. I need your company, but your heart is always in a future that has not yet arrived." The mouse, with a gesture of bitterness, replied, "And what good is it? Why enjoy what I have if one day I will have to leave it behind? I prefer not to hold on. I prefer not to rejoice because I know that sooner or later, everything ends." She took his small paws firmly, looked him in the eyes and said with a deep voice, "But my love, precisely because everything ends is why it is worth living, don't you understand? The memories we build today are the only thing that makes us truly immortal. If you flee from love and joy out of fear, in the end you will be dying every day without realizing it." The mouse fell silent. His wife's words pierced his heart like a truth he did not want to accept. However, his mind, still trapped by fear, whispered to him that none of that was enough to overcome the shadow that pursued him. The mouse remained silent after his wife's words. He got up without saying much more, with a lost look and a restless heart. He wanted to understand what she was telling him, but the fear continued to outweigh any advice. That day he decided to go out early to look for almonds to bring food home. He walked along the jungle paths with his backpack slung over his back, still trapped in his dark thoughts. As he walked, he heard laughter and singing. He stopped for a moment and observed. On one side of the path, a group of squirrels played, jumping from branch to branch, tossing fruits and chasing each other with joy. Further ahead, he saw some birds fluttering together, celebrating the dawn with their song. Even a family of foxes rested peacefully, sharing food and affection in the shade of a tree. The mouse watched them in silence with a lump in his throat. He wondered how they could all enjoy life with such lightness, as if death were not prowling around their steps. Could it be that they don't think about the end? Could it be that they ignore that one day everything ends? He said to himself, feeling like a stranger amidst the joy of others. He continued walking, collecting some almonds along the way, but his mind could not detach from that scene. Inside him, a voice urged him to ask himself if perhaps he was the only one living as a slave, to a fear that others had learned to let go of. But that same day, fate showed him an image that shook him even more. Turning a narrow jungle path, the mouse was paralyzed. A few meters from him, a group of vultures devoured the corpse of a tiger. Black feathers fluttered in the air, the harsh squawks filled the silence, and bones crunched under sharp beaks. The mouse could not look away. That tiger, once a symbol of strength and greatness, now lay lifeless, reduced to a pile of dead meat. His eyes, which once intimidated everyone, were empty. His imposing roar had been extinguished forever. The small mouse felt a chill run down his body and thought with anguish, "If even the powerful tiger had this end, what can I expect? I, who am so fragile and small. Does death equalize us all regardless of how strong we were in life?" He brought his little paws to his chest, trying to calm the frantic beating of his heart. Perhaps life is only this, a brief instant that ends in nothingness. What's the point of running, loving, dreaming, if one day we will only be a memory, and then, not even that? Tears began to well up as he watched the vultures brutally tear the last remains from the tiger. The scene became unbearable, and yet his eyes could not look away. It was as if death was staring directly at him, reminding him that his turn would also come. With a broken voice he murmured, "God, why does life end this way? If even the most imposing creature in the jungle ended in silence, what's the point of striving? Why give me a heart that dreams if one day you will tear it from my chest?" The wind blew hard as if it wanted to erase his thoughts, but instead of calming him, it plunged him deeper into the storm of his own mind. Fear enveloped him more strongly than ever. That night, after a long day of collecting almonds, the mouse returned tired to his burrow. His wife and young ones slept peacefully, but he once again could not fall asleep. The weight of what he had seen during the day, the cheerful life of some, the brutal death of the tiger, made him feel trapped between two worlds he did not understand. He went out in silence and sat on a rock under the starry sky. The murmur of the wind accompanied his thoughts as the small mouse looked up and whispered, "God, tell me, what is life? Why does it last so little? Why do you let us dream, laugh, and love, if in the end death takes it all away? Is it a cruel game, a meaningless sigh? I watch my young ones sleep and tremble with fear at the thought that one day I will not be there to protect them. Is that the destiny you give us, to be born to work, to fear, and to wait for you to take our breath away? Tell me, God, is it worth it if everything dissolves like dust in the wind? Why sow love if death comes to harvest it? Why fight if we always lose against time?" Tears moistened his whiskers when suddenly a cold breeze swept through the valley. The air changed, and a dark silhouette appeared in front of him, a majestic figure with a cloak that seemed made of shadows and a strange glow surrounding it. The mouse jumped back with a racing heart. "What are you?" he asked, trembling. The figure looked at him with serene eyes and responded with a deep voice, "I am what you fear the most. I am the angel of death." The mouse froze. His small body trembled from head to foot. He believed his last day had arrived. "No!" he cried desperately. "This is my end. Have you come to take me?" "Please, I'm not ready. My family needs me. My young ones are still small." Death, instead of taking his life, leaned a little towards him, and with an unexpectedly calm tone replied, "Calm down, little mouse. I am not coming for you tonight." The mouse looked at him with disbelief. His voice trembled as he asked, "Then why are you here? Why show me your face if it's not my time?" The angel of death remained silent for a few seconds, and then said with solemnity, "Why did you call me? Your questions, your pain, your fear, all that reached me. You invoked me with your anguish, and here I am." The mouse, still trembling, could barely whisper, "If you haven't come to take me, then tell me, what is the point of this short life? Why are we born only to die? Why did you give me a heart that dreams if one day you will extinguish it?" Death observed him in silence, and with a deep voice pronounced, "Do not be mistaken, little one. I have no authority to take your life. Do you not know that every breath, from the greatest to the smallest, is placed before the Eternal One? He is the one who gives and the one who takes away. I only obey, I only comply. Hey, you're enjoying this story, aren't you? Then comment the phrase, 'Today I choose to truly live.' That way I know you are connected with the message. And look, I'll tell you that 94.7% of the people who watch these videos are not yet subscribed. If you are one of them, be sure to subscribe now. It's totally free, and that way you will continue to receive more stories. Also remember that at the end of the video there are more stories waiting for you." The mouse opened his eyes with astonishment as the figure continued. "You complain about how short your existence is, but you haven't seen the butterfly that lives only a few days. Haven't you noticed the insect that barely sees the light of one dawn, and by the next it no longer exists? They don't waste their moments. They live, they fly, they sing, they fulfill their purpose. And you have more time than they do, but you spend it in fear, in lamentations, in thinking about a tomorrow that doesn't even belong to you. And look at the tortoise too. She lives many, many years, but she is not tormented by the idea of the end. She walks slowly. She savors every step, every leaf, every ray of sunshine. She lives in peace with the time she was given, be it much or little. Little mouse, don't you understand that the value of life is not in the number of years, but in how you live them?" The voice became even more solemn, as if it resonated in the mouse's heart. "The Creator gave you life to live, not to waste it with anxiety. Every day you wake up is a gift. What will you do with it? Will you continue to fear the end, or will you learn to truly live?" The mouse listened with tears in his eyes, trembling. He had never thought that even the smallest beings made better use of their time than he did. The angel of death, after uttering those words that burned like fire in the mouse's heart, began to slowly vanish into the gloom of the night. His figure moved away with a solemn step, like one who returns to fulfill the work entrusted to him since the beginning of time. The mouse was left alone under the dark sky with the murmur of the crickets and the echo of that voice resonating within him. He returned to his burrow with trembling paws, but that night he could not sleep. He closed his eyes and heard the angel's words again. "The Creator gave you life to live, not to waste it in fear." He tossed and turned on his bed of dry leaves. His mind, accustomed to chasing ghosts of tomorrow, was now trapped in a whirlwind of questions bigger than himself. "What if death is right?" he murmured to himself. "What if I have wasted my days counting the hours instead of living them? What good is my family's love if my heart is always imprisoned in a future that does not yet exist?" The mouse squeezed his eyes shut, trying to find relief, but only found more restlessness. That revelation haunted him, that there were beings with less time than he had, and yet they lived intensely. He felt small, ashamed, but also confused. How could he change a habit of fear that had accompanied him his whole life? The silence of the night became a mirror, Every shadow, every breath of wind seemed to remind him that his existence did not belong to him, that everything was in the hands of the Eternal One. At dawn, the mouse left his burrow with his backpack on his back, ready to look for almonds for his family. He walked slowly, still with the echo of the angel of death's words in his mind. Time does not belong to you, but what you do with it does. As he walked, he let the murmur of the wind envelop him until he reached a crystal-clear stream and stopped, surprised. There, in the shade of a large tree, 3 peculiar beings were gathered. An ancient tortoise, with slow steps and a serene gaze, an owl with grey feathers, wise and silent, and a colourful butterfly that fluttered happily around them. They laughed, talked, and seemed to enjoy every second of that encounter as if nothing else existed. The mouse moved, approached them, and said, "Forgive me, but how can you be so happy? I can't stop thinking about the day everything will end. I live in fear of tomorrow, and that fear steals my peace today." The tortoise looked at him with tenderness and replied slowly, "Little friend, I have lived many years and I have learned that anxiety about the future is like carrying a weight that does not yet exist. Each day brings its own concerns. If you live worried about what is to come, you will never enjoy what you already have. Patience and calm are a greater treasure than any wealth." The owl, opening its wings with solemnity, added, "I observe from above and I know that everything in life has its time. To be born and to die, to laugh and to cry, to sow and to harvest. The wise man is not disturbed by the inevitable because he understands that there is a purpose in every season. Prudence is in living wisely today because tomorrow is not in your hands." Then the butterfly, dancing among the flowers, said in a gentle voice, "I live very briefly, and precisely for that reason, I enjoy it more. What good would it do to have wings if I only use them to fear the end? My secret is simple: to enjoy the beauty that surrounds me, to love life while I have it and not to waste a single instant in lamentations. Gratitude turns every day into a gift, even if it is brief." The mouse listened to them with a shaken heart. Every word was like a blow, and at the same time like a balm. The tortoise spoke to him of calm, the owl of purpose, and the butterfly of gratitude. And then he understood that perhaps the problem was not the brevity of his life, but the way he had chosen to live it. The mouse lowered his gaze with a lump in his throat and confessed, "Last night I saw something I never thought I would see. The angel of death came to me. I trembled, thinking it was my end, but he told me words I cannot forget. He told me that my life is not in his hands, but in the Creator's, that I waste my days in fear when there are other beings that live much less than I do, and yet enjoy every instant." The tortoise, with serene eyes, looked at him and said with a deep voice, "The angel did not lie to you. Every being has its time under the sun, and we are not the ones who decide it. We gain nothing by worrying about lengthening the days, because time is in hands greater than ours. The life of every living being is before the Creator. Likewise, little friend, we will all depart one day, and no one will escape death. What is in your hands is the way you choose to live." The owl slowly turned its head and added, "Wisdom consists in understanding that the fear of death steals life. The prudent person knows that every day is a gift, and that worrying about tomorrow is like trying to catch the wind. Everything has its moment, and what matters is not how long you live, but how you do it." The butterfly, with a cheerful but firm voice, fluttered close to the mouse and said, "I am proof of what the angel wanted to teach you. My life is brief but full of colors and gratitude. If I spent my hours thinking about the end, my wings would never touch the sky. Life withers quickly, but he who lives with joy makes it eternal in the hearts of those he loves." The mouse felt his small paws tremble, not with fear, but with emotion. It was as if the message from the night before was now confirmed by those wise friends. The tortoise, with a calm smile, lowered her head towards the little mouse and said with tenderness, "So, little friend, don't waste any more of your days in fears you cannot control. Go love your family, hug your wife, play with your young ones, and laugh with your friends. Enjoy the simple food, the warmth of your home, and the peace of every dawn. Don't waste your strength on disputes, nor get into unnecessary trouble. Life already brings its own challenges. Learn to be grateful for the little or much you have, because that is true wealth." The tortoise fell silent for a few seconds and solemnly concluded, "Remember this. There is no greater good for every living being than to rejoice in his work, enjoy what he has, and savor the fruit of his hands, because that is the gift given to him under the sun. The small mouse remained silent for a few moments, with his heart beating strongly. He looked at the tortoise, the owl, and the butterfly, and something was reflected in his eyes that he had not felt in a long time. Peace. With a choked voice he said to them, "Thank you. Thank you for opening my eyes. I have spent my days hidden, fearing a future that has not yet arrived, and the only thing I achieved was losing the present. Today I understand that I have wasted valuable moments with my family and friends, but I don't want to live like that anymore. I want to enjoy, laugh, love, and be grateful for every day that is given to me." The owl bowed its head in approval. The butterfly danced happily in the air, and the tortoise closed her eyes with a serene smile. The mouse, with a renewed soul, took his backpack full of almonds and returned home. That afternoon, instead of locking himself in his burrow, he ran to hug his wife and play with his young ones. His friends saw him arrive with a new light in his eyes, and he, for the first time in a long time, joined their laughter and games. From that day on, the mouse understood that life is not measured by its duration, but by the way it is lived. The fear that once imprisoned him turned into gratitude, and every dawn ceased to be a source of anguish to become a gift. And so the small mouse learned what many forget, that the true secret of life is not in counting the days, but in making every day count. Hey, I'm really glad you made it to the end of this video. And if this story left you with a lesson, subscribe so you don't miss more life-changing stories. Thank you. See you in the next one.